I'm 27 years old. I have a job, a real one. I've been working since I was 16, and last Tuesday I checked my bank account, both accounts, and the total came to 214, not 214,000, not 21,400, just 214. 11 days before payday, I sat there for a long time, not panicking, just quiet, trying to figure out how 11 years of working had added up to a number that small. I still don't have a full answer, but I've been thinking about it. A lot, so let me just be honest about where I am. I make about $48,000 a year. That's before taxes. After everything comes out, I take home around $3,100 a month. Some months it's a little more, depending on hours. My rent is $1,050. It's a one-bedroom. Nothing special, but it's mine. Car insurance is $187 a month. I don't have a car payment anymore, paid it off last year, which felt like a win at the time. Groceries, gas, phone, a few subscriptions. By the time everything settles, I'm usually left with somewhere between $400 and $600 a month. In theory, in reality, I'm almost always at zero before the next paycheck. I have no savings account. I have no retirement account. I have about $6,800 in credit card debt spread across 2 cards. And I have $18,000 left on a student loan that I've been paying the minimum on for 4 years. That's the full picture. Nothing hidden, but if I'm being honest, I've known something was off for a while. I just kept finding reasons not to look at it too closely. The first real mistake I made was right out of school. I got my first full-time job at 22. I was making $34,000, which felt like a lot at the time, more money than I had ever seen on a regular basis. And instead of adjusting slowly, I adjusted all at once. I moved into a nicer place than I needed. I bought a used car on a payment plan. I started eating out more, buying things more, just because I finally could. Nothing extravagant. Just small upgrades that added up quietly. Within 6 months, I had built a life that cost exactly what I earned. No room for anything else, and because nothing felt out of control, no single big splurge, nothing dramatic, I told myself I was doing fine. That pattern followed me through every raise, every job change. Each time I earned more, I spent more. The gap between income and expenses never really widened. I just kept filling it. The second mistake is one I'm less comfortable talking about. A few years ago, I had about $3,200 saved. Took me a while to get there. A friend of mine was going through a hard time and needed help. I gave him $1,500 of it. He paid back $400. The rest just never came up again. I don't regret helping him. But I do think about the version of me that would have had that money still, the version that might have kept building on it. Instead, I used the remaining $1,700 on a trip I told myself I deserved. And I was back to zero. But recently, something happened that I wasn't expecting. I was at a family dinner. Nothing special. And my uncle, he's in his early 60s, been through a lot financially. He looked at me across the table and said something quietly. He said, "You know, the hardest part isn't making money. It's just keeping some of it." I don't know why that landed the way it did. I've heard versions of that idea before, but the way he said it. Not as advice, not as a lecture, just as something true that he had lived. I drove home thinking about it. And I couldn't stop. If you're around my age and you're watching this, or if you're a little older and you've been through something like this, I'd genuinely like to know how you handled it. Not the cleaned up version, just the real one. Drop it in the comments. I think there's something useful in hearing what people actually did, not what they were supposed to do. What I started to realize slowly, not all at once, was that I had never actually made a decision about money. Not a real one. I had just reacted. Paycheck comes in, expenses go out, whatever's left gets spent on something small because the week was long and I felt like I earned it. There was no moment where I sat down and said, "This is what this money is for." I had just been moving through each month without a direction. And the thing about moving without a direction is that you don't feel lost. You feel busy. You feel like you're managing because you are paying your bills. The lights are on. The rent is covered. Everything looks okay from the outside, but quietly, slowly, nothing accumulates. Nothing grows. And one day you're 27 and you look at $214 and you wonder where 11 years went. That realization wasn't a crisis. It was more like a long exhale, like finally admitting something I had been carrying for a while without naming it. Then I started asking a question I had avoided for a long time. Not how do I get rich or how do I invest? Just one simple question. What would it feel like to have 1 month of expenses saved? Just one. Around $2,000. What would that actually change? And the answer surprised me. It wouldn't change my lifestyle at all. Not even slightly. But it would change how I move through every week. Because right now, every unexpected expense is a problem. A small emergency becomes a stressful week. A car issue becomes a credit card charge. 1 month of savings wouldn't make me wealthy. But it might make me steady. That small shift in thinking is what I've been building on. So here's what I'm actually doing now. And again, this isn't a plan I read somewhere. It's just what I decided to try. I opened a separate savings account, just a basic one through an online bank that earns around 4% interest. Not exciting, but more than nothing. I set up an automatic transfer of $150 every payday. Before I see it, before I think about it. It just moves. And I've told myself not to touch it for anything short of a real emergency. I called about my credit cards. Just asked, no negotiation skills, no script, just asked if they could lower my interest rate. One of them said no. The other one dropped it from 24% to 19%. That's not a miracle. But it means a few more dollars each month go toward the actual balance instead of just the interest. And I've been tracking what I spend, not obsessing over it, just writing it down in the Notes app on my phone. Just so I can see where things actually go. That's it. 4 small things. Nothing dramatic. But here's what I keep circling back to. What if $150 a month isn't enough? What if something breaks before I build any cushion? What if I'm already too far behind to catch up in any real way? I don't have answers to those questions yet. I'm sitting with them. I think that's the part nobody talks about, the part after you make the decision, where you're doing the right thing, but you're not sure if it's working yet, where you're just hoping the small actions add up to something real, that it's not a comfortable place to be. But I'm starting to think it might be the only honest place. Have you ever made a change like this and just had to wait to find out if it mattered? I'd really like to hear about it, not looking for advice, just curious whether other people sit with that same uncertainty. I'm not going to wrap this up with something hopeful just for the sake of it. The truth is, I'm not sure how long it takes to undo the habits of several years. I'm not sure I'm doing enough. Some weeks I still overspend and have to start over. Some weeks the $150 transfer goes through and I feel something small but real. Like I'm finally moving in a direction instead of just moving. What I do know is that ignoring it didn't work. Looking away didn't make the number grow. And at 27, I still have time. Not infinite time, but enough time that the choices I make in the next year or two will actually matter later. That's what I keep coming back to when I feel like giving up. I'm going to keep tracking this. In a few months, I want to come back and show you the actual numbers, whether the savings account grew, whether the credit card balance moved, whether any of this held together in real life. If you want to follow along, just stick around. No promises of transformation, just honest updates as they happen. And if this felt like something someone in your life needed to hear, a younger sibling, a friend who never talks about money but probably should maybe send it their way. Sometimes just knowing you're not the only one helps.